Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop chasing something, it starts coming to you? Well, today we're diving into one of the most powerful principles in dating, the 48-hour rule. What I'm about to share might seem counterintuitive at first, but this simple timing strategy has helped thousands of men transform their dating life. It's not about playing games, it's about understanding human psychology and creating genuine attraction. Let's start with the mistake I see guys making over and over again, something you might be doing right now without even realizing it. Picture this. You meet someone you really like, and suddenly you're checking your phone every 5 minutes, sending message after message, hoping for a response. We've all been there. You're basically telling her, "I have nothing else going on in my life," by always being available at a moment's notice. This might feel like you're showing interest, but it's actually diminishing your value in her eyes. The worst part? When she doesn't respond quickly, you start showing anxiety through your messages, double texting, asking if everything's okay, or trying to explain yourself. This creates a negative spiral that only pushes her further away. To understand why the 48-hour rule works so powerfully, we need to look at 4 key psychological principles that make it nearly impossible for her not to think about you. First, there's the scarcity principle. When something is readily available, we take it for granted. But when access is limited, that's when our brain starts placing higher value on it. Think about limited edition sneakers or rare collectibles. Same concept applies to your attention. Then we have the power of mystery. When she can't predict your next move or doesn't know exactly what you're doing, her mind naturally fills in the gaps. She starts wondering about you, creating scenarios in her head, and this mental investment makes you more interesting. The third principle is about perceived independence. When you demonstrate that you have a full, engaging life without constantly seeking validation, it triggers a natural attraction response. It's human nature to be drawn to those who don't need us. Finally, giving space creates room for self-reflection. When she's not constantly processing new messages from you, she has time to think about your last interaction, replay moments, and actually miss your presence. Let's break down exactly what separates needy behavior from confident behavior, because this distinction is crucial for understanding how to apply the 48-hour rule effectively. The difference between these approaches is like night and day in terms of how they affect attraction. You know that moment when you send a message, and then another one just an hour later because she hasn't responded. That's panic mode, and it screams insecurity. True confidence means being completely at ease with periods of no communication. It shows emotional stability and self-assurance. Saying sorry when you've done nothing wrong is like putting a discount tag on your value. It shows you're afraid of losing her approval. Having your own passions, friends, and activities isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. It shows you're a complete person, not just waiting around. When you feel the need to justify every action or decision, it shows you don't trust your own judgment. And if you don't trust it, why should she? Setting and maintaining healthy boundaries isn't just good for you, it actually makes her feel more secure and respected in the interaction. That anxious feeling when you're waiting for an immediate response. It's telling her that your emotional state depends entirely on her actions. When you're not constantly revealing everything about yourself, you maintain an element of intrigue that keeps her wanting to know more. Now let's peek into what's actually happening in her mind during those 48 hours of space. Understanding this psychology will help you stay strong when you're tempted to break the rule. When you're not constantly available, her mind starts wondering, what is he doing? Who is he with? This natural curiosity creates mental engagement that wouldn't exist if you were always texting back instantly. Without new interactions to focus on, she naturally starts replaying your last conversation or date in her mind. These mental replays actually strengthen her emotional connection to those moments, making them more impactful than they might have been initially. Here's where it gets interesting. When you're not actively pursuing her, she begins to question your level of interest. This actually leads her to mentally list your positive qualities and remind herself why she was attracted to you in the first place. The anticipation of your next interaction creates a dopamine response in her brain. It's the same psychological mechanism that makes us excited about upcoming events or adventures. She's literally getting a chemical reward for thinking about you. Finally, a subtle fear of loss kicks in. Not in a manipulative way, but in the natural human tendency to value what we might not be able to have. She starts wondering if she might be missing out on something special. Let's explore the 4 major benefits you'll experience when you properly implement the 48-hour rule. These aren't just theory, they're practical outcomes I've seen repeatedly. The first benefit is enhanced attraction, and it happens naturally without any manipulation. Instead of forcing attraction through constant presence, you're creating a natural magnetic pull that makes her gravitate towards you. She develops genuine interest because she's given space to miss you and think about you on her own terms. Most importantly, she becomes emotionally invested because she's actively thinking about you rather than just responding to your constant presence. The second benefit is dramatically improved communication quality. When you do talk, the conversations become more meaningful because there's actually something to talk about. You'll notice small talk naturally decreases because both parties are more intentional with their communication. The quality of your exchanges improves because you're both bringing fresh energy and experiences to the conversation. The third benefit is perhaps the most unexpected: personal growth. You'll develop stronger emotional resilience by learning to be comfortable with space and silence. Your sense of independence grows stronger as you maintain your own life and interests. You preserve your individuality instead of merging your entire identity with the relationship. Finally, you create a healthier dynamic that can actually last. Mutual respect develops naturally when both people maintain their individual space. Clear boundaries are established from the start, setting a healthy precedent. You build a sustainable connection based on genuine attraction rather than dependency. Now, let's talk about how to actually implement the 48-hour rule without coming across as playing games or being manipulative. The distinction between creating natural space and deliberately ignoring someone is crucial. When you create space naturally, you're genuinely living your life and maintaining healthy boundaries. But when you deliberately ignore someone, you're playing games, and that will ultimately backfire. Let me explain how to do this right. The 48-hour rule isn't about watching the clock or setting timers. It's about developing a lifestyle where you're not constantly available because you're genuinely engaged in your own pursuits. Maybe you're at the gym working on a project or spending time with friends. These natural gaps in communication create authentic space that she'll respect, rather than feeling like she's being manipulated by calculated delays. Let me share some crucial mistakes I've seen guys make when trying to implement the 48-hour rule. Avoiding these pitfalls will make the difference between success and failure. One of the biggest mistakes is checking her Instagram stories or online status while you're supposed to be creating space. This not only defeats the purpose, but can drive you crazy. Plus, many apps show when you've viewed stories, which completely undermines what you're trying to achieve. Another major pitfall is treating this like a mathematical equation, counting exactly 48 hours to the minute before responding. That's not natural, and it makes the whole thing feel like a game. Remember, we're aiming for authentic space, not calculated manipulation. Coming up with elaborate excuses about why you were busy is transparent and unnecessary. If you're genuinely living your life, you don't need to justify your time to anyone. Simple, honest responses work better than complicated stories. Some guys make the mistake of acting distant or cold when they do respond, thinking it adds to the effect. This actually creates emotional whiplash and confusion. When you do communicate, be warm and genuine. The space between communications is enough. Finally, resist the urge to humble brag about how busy or in demand you are. True confidence doesn't need to advertise itself. Let your actions speak for themselves, and she'll notice naturally. Let's talk about how to know if the 48-hour rule is actually working in your favor. These are the positive signs you should look out for. The first and most obvious sign is when she starts reaching out to you first more frequently. This shows she's thinking about you during those gaps and feels comfortable taking initiative. It's a clear indicator that the space you're creating is building attraction rather than distance. You'll notice her messages evolve from simple replies like haha or cool to more thoughtful, detailed responses. She's investing more energy into your conversations because she values the interaction more. She might share stories from her day or ask for your opinion on things. Another great sign is when her response time naturally decreases. Not because you're playing games, but because she's genuinely excited to hear from you. When someone values your messages, they prioritize responding to them. Pay attention to when she starts asking specific questions about your life, hobbies, or plans. This shows she's actually curious about what you do when you're not talking to her. It means the space you're creating is making her want to know more about you. Perhaps the most telling sign is when she starts making future plans without prompting. She might mention upcoming events or suggest activities you could do together. This shows she's thinking about you in her future, not just in the moment. Before we wrap up, let's cement the most important lessons about the 48-hour rule that you need to remember. Remember that space isn't just about waiting, it's about creating the right conditions for genuine attraction to develop. When you give someone room to miss you, you allow natural attraction to build without pressure. Focus on making your interactions meaningful rather than frequent. One quality conversation is worth more than dozens of empty check-ins. This applies not just to dating, but to all relationships in your life. The 48-hour rule works best when you're genuinely engaged in your own life. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about actually being busy building a life you're excited about. That natural enthusiasm is magnetic. Above all, keep it natural and authentic. The moment this becomes a calculated game is the moment it loses its power. Trust in the process, focus on your growth, and let attraction develop organically.